Karen Ataya is a Washington Post writer who happens to live here in the DFW area, I believe. And on Twitter, she posted this GIF. All right. So this is a picture. This, for those who are maybe not visually able to see this, this is from a TV show called Community. A cheerful young black man walks into the room with boxes of pizza, ready to enjoy it with his friends, only to find the curtains are on fire, someone's been shot in the leg, there's smoke from the kitchen, and everyone is sobbing and screaming at each other. It's the darkest timeline. Ataya posted this GIF with the caption, "Me walking into Black History Month this year." Yeah, I feel that. It would be really nice, I think, to spend a whole sermon lifting up the amazing Black Americans who have shaped our nation and who are still changing it for the better today. I would love to talk about Black history 1 year, just for 1 year, without talking the whole time about the ways that white people have cribbed, cabined, and confined Black Americans. From the first day they arrived on these shores as enslaved people in 1619 to today's pervasive white supremacist culture within American society and policing, a toxic brew of toxic masculinity, intolerance of accountability, and dehumanizing others, especially those who look different. But alas, this will not be that Black History Month. Tyree Nichols was beaten to death by Black officers of the Memphis police force. Anthony Lowe, a double amputee, was armed with a knife when police confronted him. When he got out of his wheelchair to crawl away from them, they used a taser on him before shooting him more than 6 times. After being in a car accident, Keenan Anderson was tasered over and over and over again and died several hours later as a result. He was in his 30s. Oscar Leon Sanchez struggled with mental illness, and when police confronted him in his home, he had a pipe and a chain in his hands. They shot him, they handcuffed him, and they took him to the hospital, where he died. In the meantime, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has completely led the charge to completely erase Black history and thinking from public education. In the latest appalling example, DeSantis and his party members refused to accept a new college AP course, 10 years in the development, on African American studies, calling it, and I quote, "woke indoctrination masquerading as education." The creators of the AP test then released a new version, whitewashed for your convenience and pleasure, removing essays and writings by authors such as Ta-Nehisi Coates, Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, Audre Lorde, Alice Walker, and, of course, Kimberly Crenshaw, the respected doctorate scholar who coined the term critical race theory. All taken out. An in-depth look at the Black Lives Matter movement that was part of the curriculum has been reduced to an optional research project. The College Board responded to accusations of bowing to pressure by saying the changes are unrelated to the Florida Education Board's hyperbolic claims. Instead, the College Board insists they just wanted to focus more on more ancient Black history, like the civilizations of Nubia. Well, sure, that seems more germane to African American studies than the Black Lives Matter movement, a 10-year-old social movement that has changed the landscape of America. If past is prelude, and if those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, culture warriors like DeSantis and his education board chairman, Manny Ortiz, are queuing up another golden oldie for the enjoyment of all their citizens, Black, white, Asian, Latina, anything else. Let's just call it Jim Crow 2.0. Freshly laundered for your pleasure. And, here I've focused on Florida. Many of the shootings that I've talked about, one took place in Memphis, Tennessee, the others in California. But hey, we live in Texas, where school teachers are too afraid to have books in their classrooms, and MAGA hats are fashion wear. This, Texas, is a big old glass house to be throwing some stones from. And yet, we will throw those rocks. We must. Because the master's house must be dismantled with or without the master's tools. Audre Lorde, the quote I'm pulling from, said, "The master's house will never be dismantled with the master's tools." But she was taken out of the curriculum, so don't worry, no one will know. This all makes me mad. So now I'm going to make us uncomfortable. I want to talk about white supremacy culture. The term white supremacy began as a social, religious, and scientific belief in the supremacy of European people and culture. It was an economically useful belief. Europe grew rich on colonization, and colonization was nicely helped along by the conviction that the colonizers were bringing something good and noble, white culture, to childlike savages around the world. It's also easy to use up entire populations as workers, as slaves, when you're convinced they aren't quite as human as you. White supremacy came to the Americas with white people. And in our country, it was used to justify the enslavement and the genocide of indigenous populations and the enslavement of Africans and their descendants. When slavery ended with the Civil War, white supremacy in America changed and became a matter of black code laws, which govern the opportunities and behavior of freed slaves. Later, these came to be known as Jim Crow laws. This post-Civil War time also saw the rise of openly white supremacist groups such as the Ku Klux Klan. Moving into the modern era, the Klan is still alive and well, and of course we know over the past 5 to 6 years, many similar groups, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, and the alt-right, have emerged less ashamed than ever and more vocal than ever. I want to ask a quick question here in the room. How many people here were alive during the time of the Jim Crow laws? Even if you were a child, raise your hand. Thank you. As you can see from our hands, open, governmentally sanctioned white supremacy is not a matter of the distant past. It feels like it should be, but it is not. It is an evil which is alive and well and being state-supported once again, openly, within our time, within the time of our memory, and we can see what's coming in the future. We want to say that it is not governmentally sanctioned to be racist anymore. There are amendments, there are laws, there are policies that are specifically there to protect equal protection and equal opportunity. And many of us here, most of us, we are deeply uncomfortable with the phrase white supremacy culture. My own instinct is to cry out, I am not a part of this. I am not a member of the Ku Klux Klan. I don't believe that white people are superior to black and brown people. I have lots of black friends, she said sadly. Mostly we just want to say, I'm not a white supremacist. And if you want to cry out these same things, and I suspect you do, I have good news. You're not a white supremacist. Good job. But we are white, most of us here. And we do live in the United States of America, and we benefit from systems that were set up long before our time, white supremacist systems. John A. Powell, the Haas Chancellor's chair in equity and inclusion at Berkeley, has this to say. The thing that's really slick about whiteness, if you will, is that most of the benefits can be obtained without ever doing anything personally. There are a whole set of assumptions that flow from being white, just like there are a whole set of assumptions that flow from being a male. Being a man doesn't mean you have antipathy toward women, but if society is patriarchal, which a lot of people say it is, it means that the ways resources are distributed in society benefits men. In that sense, men are not innocent, even though they may not personally have antipathy toward women. In the same way, white people, are not innocent. We are given the spoils. Well, no, he doesn't say, I'm going to use his language. He's African American. They are given the spoils of a racist system, even if they're not personally racist. Now I'll rephrase it. We are given the spoils of the racist system, even as we ourselves struggle to fight and dismantle racism. Way back in 2015, Cristina Rivera, a Latina woman who was passed over for hiring by the UUA in favor of a white man who was less qualified than she, spoke out about her experiences during the hiring process at the UUA. She wrote this in her original essay. In recent days, I've read a lot on social media about this topic, and inevitably someone says, it's not about this one hire. And that is true, and it's not true. This is just the latest in a long history of hiring and firings that keep religious professionals of color out of power. But for me and my family, it is about this one hire. I have been injured. My family has been injured. This includes financial injury to our family. Our faith has been tested. I have had to sit my sons down, fierce warriors of Unitarian Universalism who love their faith deeply, and explain the realities of racially discriminatory hiring. And yes, I've always planned to have that talk with them, but I had hoped it wouldn't be in the context of our faith and my job. The parade of emotions across their faces, confusion, disappointment, anger, and now resignation, is almost more than I can bear. So yes, in the larger UU world, it isn't just about this one hire, and to us, it very much is. And that's the hell of it, my friends. When I benefit from my whiteness, it's not just a harmless occurrence. I mean, it's not just that when I buy a Band-Aid, I get to match my skin color. It's not that. It's that when I benefit from my whiteness, someone else is losing out. Whether they're losing out on the chance to cover a scrape with a innocuous Band-Aid, or they're losing out on the chance for a job because my name is Kristen and their name is Lakeisha, white privilege hurts real people. In a real sense, power that we express through social capital or cold hard cash is a zero-sum equation. In order to get our ledger out of the red, those of us with privilege who benefit from white supremacist systems will have to give power away. So then the question becomes, are we willing? Because make no mistake about it, as Unitarian Universalists, we are called to this work. We are called to do this thing. Unitarian Universalism is a faith which requires to not only learn from the facts and figures of the situation, but also the warm, beating heart of it. Our faith demands that we hear the statistics and the stories, and that we respond to both. W. Kamau Bell is a comedian, an activist, a writer. He was the host of the United Shades of America on CNN, and at one time, the co-host of Politically Reactive, a podcast that I enjoyed. And when asked by white people, what should I do? Kamau Bell says, talk to your people. Talk to your people. Have uncomfortable conversations with white people, not black people. They know about all the things we think about racism. They're good. They don't need any help. Talk to your people. Point out white supremacist BS, even if people call you a joyless buzzkill. Be that guy. Be that girl. Be that person. Be that non-gender conforming human who says, as a white person, I am telling you that is some grade A bull. And let me tell you a story and give you some statistics that will help you understand. And It all sucks, and it may be uncomfortable, but it is our work to do, by which I mean us, white people. So I ask you now, every time I say white people, us white people, we white people, it makes me uncomfortable. Does it make you uncomfortable?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Oh. White people, white history, white culture. I'm glad we're uncomfortable. Because usually, guys, we're just people. Everyone else is Black people, Latina history, Asian American and Pacific Island culture. Not just culture, not just people, not just history. If you feel a tiny bit of discomfort or a lot about being labeled as white instead of just people, get used to it. Lean into it. And know that it's not nearly as uncomfortable as being followed around a store just because you're shopping and you're Black. And it's not nearly as uncomfortable as having to text your mother, "I love you," every time you see blue and red sirens in your rearview mirror. And it's not as uncomfortable as being targeted by the most powerful leaders of your country as subhuman, a thug, a welfare queen, a criminal, based on nothing more than those people's bigotry and hatred. So if we feel a little uncomfortable, white people, start referring to yourself as white people and lean in. We got to talk to our people. We have to have uncomfortable conversations. We have to point out privilege because privilege is literally invisible to those of us who have it until it is consciously brought to our attention. I didn't know about redlining when I was a child and my parents bought a new house. I didn't know that. Somebody had to teach me about that as I grew up. It's okay. We got to be uncomfortable. The next thing we have to do is we have to follow people of color. Not lead. Follow. People like Blue, people like Drum. When they are leading the way to justice, let's listen, let's participate. And we do. I will say the UUA has come quite a ways since 2015, and the hiring issues with Christina Rivera, we have a ways to go, but that's okay. We have to go into racial justice conversations prepared to listen and hear those who don't benefit from white supremacist systems, rather than feeling the need to speak or to justify, to defend ourselves, to be noisily sorrowful. Those situations aren't the time or place to ask for absolution. Those stories aren't being told for that reason. Those situations are the places where we listen and we learn what to do. And we hear stories that we can share with permission. Another thing we have to do, as I mentioned, is give up some of our power. James Luther Adams, who is a 20th century Unitarian theologian, wrote, "Church is the place where we practice being human." And we have to practice. We have the uncomfortable conversations. We ask questions publicly, privately, on index cards, by searching Google. We have to look into each other's faces and recognize humanity in all its diverse colors and beliefs and thoughts and beauty. And that's what we're doing here today. We're practicing being human. And as the Reverend Teresa Soto said, all of us need all of us to make it. It will take all my love and all of yours. And I'm sorry to say, the work still will not be completed. But by God, we will further it. There is more love somewhere, as the song says. We're gonna keep on till we find it. There is more love somewhere. Amen. So be it.